But first, embarrassed and enraged. That's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, Donald Trump's plan to federalize law enforcement in D.C. has been a resounding success.
You have people who can walk freely at night without having to worry about being robbed or mugged. They're wearing their watches again. They're wearing jewelry again. They're carrying purses again. People had changed their whole lives in this city for fear of being murdered, mugged, and carjacked. It is a literal statement that President Trump has freed 700,000 people in this city who were living under the rule of criminals and thugs.
The progress is indisputable. So you heard that. There's 0 homicides over the past 12 days. Carjackers are basically out of work. Those are down 85%. Oh, my gosh. Robberies, they've dropped 42%. So that's good news, and normal residents are thrilled.
Well, I'm glad they're cracking down on crime. That's all I can say.
I feel a lot safer, so I'm actually really happy.
I feel like the nation's finally becoming safe again with this, so it's nice that he has our backs and he's protecting us.
Occasionally we would have people come in and guys trying to come in and grab things off the shelf and run. That I'm not afraid of anymore.
The positive effect of it is decreasing crime. I do feel safer walking the streets when they're around.
But a greater sense of citywide safety and ramped up arrests, that's not what the radicals want. The activist towels, remember, that stands for typical old white liberals, and all the paid agitators, they keep screeching when someone's detained. The best thing on YouTube. They choose to side with illegal aliens and other criminals over their fellow citizens.
You're targeting all the unhoused in the city?
This will be a genocide. They're going to take homeless people and they're going to take brown people and they're going to put them in camps. These people right now are participating in genocide. This is not hyperbole. I'm not trying to scare people. Why are they responding like this? This is fascism. This will end in genocide. Millions of people will die if we do not stop this.
What is going on now is the worst thing that I could imagine. This is war.
I mean, these watches, you're like, what planet are these people living on? That's genocide. Saving lives is genocide. That's crazy. All right, today in the Oval Office, Trump spoke about the federal effort to restore cities and where his next move might be.
The governor of Illinois should be. Chicago's a disaster. And the governor of Illinois should say, President, would you do us the honor of cleaning up our city?
Donald Trump looked at the assembled cameras and asked for me personally to say, Mr. President, can you do us the honor of protecting our city? Instead, I say, Mr. President, do not come to Chicago. You are neither wanted here nor needed here.
Then Pritzker did his big call out to the press, imploring the media to lose their objectivity, as if they have objectivity, for the sake of democracy.
To the members of the press who are assembled here today and listening across the country, I am asking for your courage to tell it like it is. This is not a time to pretend here that there are two sides to this story. Donald Trump wants to use the military to occupy a U.S. city, punish his dissidents, and score political points. If this were happening in any other country, we would have no trouble calling it what it is, a dangerous power grab.
One of the worst mayors in America joined the fun, Brandon Johnson, and he gave his own kind of stump speech today, citing crime falling, he claims, in certain categories. Then the desperate dirigible issued a tough guy warning, not to criminals, but to Trump and his top advisors.
To any federal official who would come to Chicago and try to incite my people into violence as a pretext for something darker and more dangerous, we are watching. And we are taking names. As Dr. King once said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Humbly, I would add, it doesn't bend on its own. History tells us we often have to apply force needed to make sure that the arc gets where it needs to go.
We have to apply force. Now, what does Pritzker mean there, pray tell? In one breath, he talked about peaceful and lawful resistance, and then that language about force. Well, let me decode this for you. There are two things going on. Pritzker does not want the world to see and the city to feel what life can truly be like when it's safe and gangs are back on their heels, when drug runners are forced to hide. He knows Trump is showing voters who are traditionally Democrats that they don't need to live this way. Second, what you saw today is the first movement in the 2028 Democrat primary. Not having Gavin Newsom has been dominating the anti-Trump headlines for weeks. He's been carving out his place as the early frontrunner. So others have to show that they can stand up to Trump too, which is why Pritzker puffed out his already puffy chest today. But how does that explain what's happened to his state under Democrat rule? Including, when you look at that crowd there today, Dick Durbin, who stood behind Pritzker, he looked like a stuffed cadaver doing his best Joe Biden impersonation. That was weird, not inspiring at all. Just like the entire state itself, not inspiring because it's bleeding residents. And as a result, it will lose an estimated 2 congressional seats by 2032. Well, it turns out that Americans actually don't like living in cities and in states with high taxes, high crime, a rotten education system, and a fat bureaucracy, a lot of whom were standing behind Pritzker today. Democrats, though, they apparently believe that they're entitled to win office and stay in power whether or not their policies are proven to hurt innocent, hardworking Americans, including disproportionately hurting minorities. And that's what's happening in Chicago. And look at what Zohran Mamdani is planning for NYC. He and his Socialist Party comrades want to end enforcement of misdemeanors and legalize prostitution, just for good measure. So this is all of a piece. Trump wants more law enforcement, Democrats want less. How stupid are they? But what's important to remember here, just like the Biden people didn't care about what an open border would mean, it would mean open season on Americans, their safety, their lives. The liberals of 2025, they don't care at all. Not one smidge. Your safety, your well-being, your kids' education, your standard of living, none of that matters. None of it compares to their desire to remake America. But they have a few big stumbling blocks in their way, don't they? Donald Trump and the common sense of the American voters. Now, this is why these off-year gubernatorial elections, which we're going to focus a lot on here on The Angle, are so important. Gotta elect Winsome Sears to become governor of Virginia. Defeat that fake moderate and pro-trans Abigail Spanberger. And in New Jersey, look at this. Politico sees an upset for the Republicans possible, warning Democrats that they're losing blacks and Hispanics in the state. And look, out in the midterms, remember what Vance said on The Angle last week? The GOP must not be complacent. Turnout needs to be record-breaking because the radicals need to be sent packing for good, which means they have to lose and lose big again and again. And that's The Angle.
Want even more Fox News on YouTube? Become a Fox News Patriot today. Click join to find out how.